Hello, hello. My name is Seth Whitted, owner of Whitted Media, member of the Genesis Collective. First and foremost, I want to thank Geneva College for having us be a part of honoring such a special man, Dr. King. As an artist, I've always had a curious mind. As an example, this time around, every single year, it was always taught to us to carry on Dr. King's legacy. But this statement has always puzzled me, because I'm always like, what do you mean? And of course, I always get the normal answers, fight for racism, fight for what's right. But I'm like, what does that mean? And since I couldn't find the answers from anybody else, I had to do the research myself, studying the time, studying all the people involved, the citizens, the headlines, like what was going on in that moment. And what I finally realized what Dr. King was doing was, Dr. King mastered the art of pulling back the curtain on society's blind spots, on individuals' blind spots, on organizations' blind spots. Now, what I mean by blind spots are, we all have these things about us that we can't see, whether it's habits, mindsets, decisions we make, tendencies that come from our upbringing, where we're from, age, race, location. And these things about ourselves that we can't see, these blind spots, they either have a positive effect or a negative effect. Think about it. Look at all of the problems that we face right now that we just can't seem to discuss. There's so much friction. We can't even discuss the problems, let alone come up with solutions. Look at the issue between law enforcement and the black community. We can't just have a simple conversation to come up with solutions to fix things. Poverty, education, heck, COVID. Look, vax versus unvax, mask versus unmask. You know somebody who believes the opposite of you when it comes to COVID, and you can't stand them. When they make posts, you can't stand it. Or if you've had full-blown arguments, it's tore families apart. There's a clear blind spot there that stops us from being able to discuss things. This is why it kills me when people, black and white, say, oh, if I was around during the civil rights era, I would have did this, or I would have fought for y'all. Like, you have no idea who you would have been. You have no idea what blind spots you would have been raised in. No idea. Heck, you have no idea what your blind spots are now. Because as I was doing my research through the times, I used to look back and I used to think, okay, all white people were racist and all black people were fighting for Dr. King, but that wasn't the case. Dr. King was a minority. Eventually it grew. But black people, a lot of black people, as I've seen through interviews, were saying, things are getting better for us. Dr. King is making things harder for us. And I would hear white folks say, I ain't got no problem with Negroes. Dr. King he's stirring up trouble. He making trouble for everybody around here. You know, like I'm seeing these things in my research and I'm like, wow. I'm starting to realize that there was a clear blind spot in society. And unless you were dealing with the pain from discrimination, the pain from coon hunting, the pain from lynching, you have no idea where you would have stood. There was a story I came across in my research about a lady named Peggy Wallace. She was alive during this time. Her father was a governor. Years later, after everything, she took her son Burns to a museum in Alabama. And they came to this section that had an exhibit. And on the video, they showed the walk on Selma. They showed the churches being burned. They showed police and fire departments coming together, water hoses piercing the skin of men and women and children, dogs taking bites out of people, and police hitting folks with batons. And it's becoming emotional for her and her son Burns. And then it turns to the front of the school, and there's two men in uniform, and there's one man in the middle, Governor Wallace, her father. And Burns looks up at her and he says, Ma, why did Paul do that to those people? And both of them are there sitting there crying, and all she could tell him was he thought he was doing what was right for the state. He thought he was doing what he needed to do to protect the state. It was a clear blind spot. So you have no idea what your blind spots would have been, or who you would have been, or what your blind spots might be right now. The bigger question to me is how we even spot blind spots as a society and as individuals. And the number one key for spotting blind spots and finding solutions for blind spots is listening. Listening with the intentions of understanding. Listening with the intention of hearing where the other side is coming from. not with the intentions of trying to convince people something. True listening. Even blind spots as an individual. Feelings of embarrassment, vulnerability. Heck, you ever went to work or school or somewhere and you was talking to somebody and they handed you some gum and was basically telling you your breath stank? You know what I'm saying? How embarrassing that was? I'm serious, like, because and here's the thing. You weren't embarrassed that your breath stunk. You were embarrassed that somebody recognized something about you that you didn't see. It was a clear blind spot. Heck, I got a blind spot detector right in my house. You know, I call her my wife. You know what I mean? She points things out all the time. Like, you know, you know what I'm saying? What I used to call nagging is now my blind spot detector. You know what I'm saying? She was telling me the other day that I'm not present. Like, you need to be more present. Boom, boom, boom. And so when I used to argue, now I change the way that I react to that feeling now. Now it's like, oh, wait, this might be an opportunity to grow. This might be an opportunity to learn. So to truly carry on Dr. King's legacy is to spot society's blind spots, to recognize your own blind spots, uproot them, come up with solutions to remove them or make sure that they can't affect people. And be willing to lose it all. Be willing to be canceled. Be willing to lose friends. Be willing to sacrifice it all, because Dr. King did. He lost his life behind this. And I'm sure to him it was well worth it and he would do it again. So let's spot these blind spots, expose them, offer solutions, make sure that they can't affect anybody any longer, and be willing to risk it all for it.